San Francisco's latest plunge into ideological lunacy is a direct assault on the future of education in America and accountability to failing students. A new initiative by the city will see its public schools revising its grading plan with an 80% or higher getting U and A. But guess what? It gets worse. A 41% now earns you a C and a 21% a D. If you simply guessed on an exam wearing a blindfold with no studying and no educated guessing, you will statistically get a 25%. In other words, it will be mathematically impossible for you to fail. This is what they're calling grading equity, but that's not what it is. That's grading for failure and calling it compassion. It is absolutely insane. No common sense. They are sabotaging the futures of these kids.
I mean, we spend the most money. We spend more money on education than any other country in the world. But our numbers and our children. I mean, up here in Baltimore, we had a kid graduate high school that couldn't read, couldn't write his name. And this kid was graduating high school, and his mama was trying to sue Baltimore City Schools. Ben Crump came out here, was going to take the case until he realized, like, wait, I can't defend this. How do you let your kid get to 18, graduate high school, and can't read, can't write their own name? This is a problem. How much do you put on the parents? How much do you put on the actual, I guess, public schools or the American school system? I'll ask Mika. I know you have children that are either in school or somewhere along those lines. I don't know if you're homeschooling or what you're doing down there, but how much of this do you put on parents in comparison to the actual education? I guess the educators, because I mean, I'm sure the teachers are y'all just following suit, right? Y'all just doing whatever's being told from up top.
Maryland has some of the worst schools and some of the best. It goes by county, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can assure you the Democratic counties are probably like, well, PG County is exactly like California. I can assure you that. But here's the thing. A lot of it is with the parents. And I find it irritating because a lot of the parents, they always act like it's the school's sole job. Like, yes, I am paying taxes for you to educate. However, it is your job as a parent to make sure that your children get the best education. And I think we forget that. And then, I have to always bring it back to this between feminism, taking mothers out the home, and having both parents having to work. A lot of the, teachers and nurturers were the mothers. All right. I know plenty of women that homeschool. I know a lot of them. My mother did it up to a certain point with us. Then we went to Montessori, and then we went to public schools. So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's only partially the school's fault. And then when you get to the schools itself, I really have to deep dive in it. Maybe I can ask Jason. I could ask you, but when did the switch happen? Because I have a degree in mathematics. Okay. So when she was talking about mathematics, I was just like, yeah. Because when did the switch happen? Because if you look at the older generations, right? My grandfather was an engineer, was an aviation engineer. He didn't have to go past the 6th grade. All right. And then if you were trying to get into something, you went into college. There were children that were 14, 15, 16 years old into college. What are we doing in these secondary schools here in America that are making these children so much smarter? Because obviously they're not. But why is that actually needed? And what is not being taught in primary school that these children are getting to these secondary schools, and some of them even college, and they don't know how to read. They don't know mathematics. Like, where does the disconnect? Is the government just getting money? Like, just to send these having bodies there, like Kamala did in California? Like, are we just getting money for pupil? Like, what are we doing?
I will gladly chime in on that. So one of the problems with education is people don't want to be embarrassed. People don't want to be embarrassed. So one of the problems that happened in education early on, is probably in the early 2000s, was that we did not want to fail children in elementary school because they would be left behind their friends, their peers. And so there were situations where somebody really truly did not deserve to move from first grade to second grade. But mom, grandma, auntie would come in and raise so much cane that they would eventually just roll that student in to the next year, even though he or she failed first grade. They are in second grade. Well, your facial expressions are already telling me that you can already realize what's going to happen. They're not going to be successful in second grade.
No.
Now, what a principal explained it to me, and because he did not do that, and he would fail if a child failed in first grade in elementary, they were going to stay. You can roll on to another school if you want to, but we're going to send that paperwork that says little Johnny, little Sally failed this grade, and they should not be promoted to the next grade. However, and he made it clear to me, kids can recover because you're in elementary school the longest of any of your school years, longer than middle school, longer than high school, longer than college. You're in elementary school and you're able to recover. So if you fail first grade and you have to repeat first grade, it's not the end of the world. I mean, the world is not going to come to a screeching halt. However, you get to 10th grade and you fail because you've been struggle busing all the way through because you should have stayed in first grade. So you're always a year behind mentally and academically. It's going to be a whole lot harder because you're almost able to drive. In some instances, you are able to drive. I'm going to have mine's going to be able to drive next year. It should be a sophomore. So, I mean, that does happen where you're almost too old. And so pushing them on becomes easier. So you get to high school, they just want to get you out the door. And they will do just about anything to get you out the door.
To get you out. Yeah.
Right.
That
So,
I've seen. Yeah.
Now, people have asked, where did this come from? I'm going to go on a limb here and feel free, dearwokec@gmail.com. Multiculturalism. If you all remember back in the 90s, multiculturalism, because before then, America was the Great American Melting Pot. If you remember Schoolhouse Rocks, remember the Great American Melting Pot? Right. Multiculturalism is what came after that. And I believe that's what started this idea that certain people groups can't learn at the same level as other people. So if and that celebration of multiculturalism has morphed into other things, and I think that's what's brought us to the state that we're in today. We can have that discussion. If you're an educator, please email me. But I think that's what got us here, because we no longer say, hey, well, let's celebrate all of our collective benefit. No, let's separate each other and become the hyphenated Americans. And then, well, this hyphenated group can't learn like this hyphenated group. So now the logical conclusion is that we need to change the standard so that everybody can benefit and get that participation trophy on steroids. There you go.
But this is to me, this is basically the woke left, perpetuating the bigotry of low expectations based off of what you just said.
No question. And your child, if you were worried about your child, had some inkling that maybe your child was not getting it, if this becomes nationwide, let me tell you right now, your fears are no longer just fears. They are real bona fide problems. And the house is on fire. This must stop. We must return to a simple education system.
But Aaron, you can go wherever you want to go with this. But I do have this question for you. How much of this issue is a circumstance of just them pushing the curriculum changes and lowering those expectations, or, of the culture shift, just a culture shift in general when it comes to, a conversation around education?
This is really not my lane. So I'm sitting here listening to y'all, and I'm like a sponge taking it in. And as y'all were talking, it took me back to the 80s when I was in school, 70s and the 80s. Only thing I can say, my experiences in school was, how I learned how to read? No teacher ever taught me how to read. I learned how to read because when I was growing up, we used comic books.
Oh, come on.
And that's how I learned how to read. The teachers, when I was going to school, seemed to me, they were insipid. They weren't interested in really us. So I've been rebellious all my life. There were, like this brother here, Jason, there were teachers like him that connected with me because I felt they cared about me. And I would listen to them a little bit more than I would never listen to the white educators. I would never listen to them. I didn't want you helping me with nothing because back then they drank a lot of coffee, and when they would come sit over you or next to you, their breath stank. So I didn't want them near me. You understand what I'm saying? I'm
I
dead
guess my
serious.
breast stinks. Sorry, man.
They smoke Marlboro cigarettes and they would drink coffee. And
Oh no.
instead of me focusing on the work, I would be saying, man, this dude breath stink, man. I don't want him next to me. And I didn't want to be bothered with them, but it was cats like Jason that connected with me a little bit and got me to move a little, in a way. But Minister Denzel got his hand up, so he wanna get in there and say something.
Yeah. Go ahead, Minister Denzel, and then Crystal, you can go. You can chime in right after he finishes.
Yeah, I just want to say that you have to also consider there may be an agenda to dumb down the public. There's some sick minds in high places who got in high places so that they could do damage. And a lot of these people, we tend to think that people, because they have degrees, that they're intelligent or that they're good. And a lot of these people with degrees are nutcases, and they have agendas to promote their sickness and their madness. And it's easier to control a population that is uneducated than it is to control a population that is educated. So dumbing down the population does have a benefit to those who would want to control the population with their craziness. You think about people talking about males being able to have children. I mean, how 10 years ago, that would have been an unthought of thought. But the way that things happen now, you have intelligent sounding people making unintelligent statements and defending unintelligent statements. There's a reason for that. That can just happen by osmosis. And so there was an agenda going on, and I think that we've been outsmarted by a lot of these nutcases because they've gotten powerful positions and they started pushing agendas. But now we see crazy everywhere. So we have our work cut out for us, people. We have our work cut out for us to fight this mess.